In this video, we're going to take what we learned in the last video about building systems and learn how to build a machine, right? This machine will get you to your goal. From there, we're going to learn how to feed the machine, okay? Because a lot of systems, processes, online businesses, they require inputs and outputs. We're going to feed the machine to take out the money. So let's jump straight into it. So here we've got our machine, all right? It currently is churning out products to then ship to customers, which turns into money, right? This is how I grow my business, this is how I live the life, travel the world, all of that through online businesses. Used to be an agency, now I'm in the ecom space, full balls to the walls. So we got our machine, right? It's churning out products, products turn into money, money turns into travel, fun, growth, whatever you want. The end goal is money for this situation. So we've got our machine, right? What we need to do is feed it. So what are the inputs to growing our business? Now, as I said, all these lessons can be translated into many different digital businesses. I'm currently heavily in the ecom space and growing my stores rapidly. We're about to hit 6 figures a month in sales on some of the stores. So that's where I'm going to be explaining most of this, but you can take away key information from each of these. So what are our inputs? What allows me to make more money in the ecom space? That is more products, okay? More platforms, like ad platforms. Then, as well, more angles, because certain platforms require angles. So you need to be good at angles and offers, right? From there, I need more ad spend. As many of you know, if you watched other ecom videos, ad spend and cash flow are very important. So these are the inputs, right? The output is pretty simple. It is money. If we simplify it down, it is genuinely money is the output. And the way I like to think about it is, what am I putting in to get out? If I'm not putting in the effort, I'm not going to be able to get out the maximum amount of money. I can't squeeze it out. It's like this sponge. You can't squeeze the sponge to get all of it unless you squeeze it really, really, really hard, okay? So inputs, more products, more ad platforms, more angles, more ad. There's obviously a lot more that you need to worry about when it comes to building an ecom brand. But these are all the inputs. If I can maximize my product additions, maximize my ad platforms, maximize my angles and offers, and maximize my ad spend and cash flow, then the machine can speed up and it can churn out even more products. It can churn out even more sales because that's what it is. It's a simple machine. It goes from A to B. It's as simple as that. So what can I do to increase all of this, right? And how do I build the machine initially? When it comes to ecom, you need your products, right? You can't sell something you don't have. So products, you need a good supplier for that. Good supplier, you need demand. So you need research. You can generate demand with ads, but you need to know what you're selling. You also need to be somewhat, and this is a asterisk quote, you need to be somewhat passionate about what you're selling. At the start, it just makes it easier if you know what you're talking about and you're passionate about it. So you need passion. We talked about this in a previous video about building your edge. And if you have passion, you have an automatic edge because you know what you're talking about. So you need products to put into the machine. Okay? That's pillar one. Then you're going to need cash flow. You need to be positive cash flow into the machine so you can scale. Cash flow, you can do a whole video on its own. But if you don't have a positive cash flow, then you can't grow. You have to have a positive cash flow. You need to invest money at the start to keep it going. Okay? So we've got cash flow. Then systems and processes, my favorite. Systems, what can be improved to get to that point? Now, a little exercise that I did the other day on the big whiteboard behind me. I don't think it's there anymore. It's not. I literally wrote, how do I make $1 million a month in sales for me personally. What do I need to do? And this is a very good thought exercise for anyone. If that's your goal, let's say you want to do 1 million a month in sales, that's the goal, okay? You can reverse engineer that. And in my last video, we talked about breaking down what you need to do to get to a certain amount and positive and negative systems. However, what inputs do I need to build this machine and then feed the machine to grow? So if I'm already doing, let's say I'm doing 10,000 a month in sales, right? I've clearly built the machine to some degree. This is already built because if it's generating $10,000 of sales a month consecutively, the machine is working. It's not working at its best. If your conversion rate's only 0.5%, then your machine's working, but it could be optimized even better. And in future videos, we'll talk about optimizing the machine. But if you're making $10,000 a month, your machine's essentially running, okay? The question then turns into how do I feed it to get to 100,000 a month, then 1 million a month? So it comes back to your inputs. Once you list out all your inputs and you list out everything that you need to do, let's break it down together. Okay, I've got $1 million a month, right? That's my goal. I have a clothing brand. What do I need? I need a lot of models to model the content. I need a lot of clothes, both stock and styles, to reach a larger demographic. Because with clothing, if you sell one shirt, you're not going to win. If you sell 100 shirts in terms of styles, then you're reaching a larger demographic. So the key difference between $10,000 a month in a clothing brand and $1 million is the amount of models you have, the amount of clothes, the amount of stock, the amount of cash flow, the amount of content, and the amount of resources you have, right? Now we sit here and we think, what can I eliminate from this list? This is just a simple list, just an example. But what can I eliminate if I had unlimited resources? And what I mean by unlimited resource is basically money and time. So if you eliminate the resources and you eliminate the cash flow, you still need stock, okay? Stock takes time to actually manufacture. You can't force to speed that up. Factories don't operate that way. So that takes time. So you can't move that needle essentially. More styles, if you have unlimited funds, then to make more styles yourself, good luck. If you have unlimited funds, you can bring in a team to do more styles for clothing. Say you need models. You can't sit there and email them yourself. You then bring in another team or a person to find models, right? Content, obviously, you need photographers. If I had unlimited money, okay, unlimited money to build my clothing brand, here is exactly what I would do to achieve that $1 million and build the machine and then feed it. I would have one photographer. You don't even probably need photographers these days because of AI, but as a photographer in my past life, you need a photographer who understands the visuals, okay? You need one photographer. You need one model scout to lock in repetitive models, right? You probably need to be in a position, one location, that all of these requirements are easy. Because if you're in, let's say, rural Texas or the middle of Australia, you're not going to be able to get all the models, all the photography, everything you need in that area. You're going to need to go to Sydney or Melbourne if you're in Australia, or Brisbane. So you need to be in the right location. And then also, you need a designer. If you're at $10,000 a month, this is going to cost a lot, but you can build systems to make it easier. At $10,000 a month, you've got a lot more time where you can just focus purely on this. So you could literally do the model scouting yourself and design the clothes. You might not be a good photographer, so you outsource this part. That's the first step. That is this part of your machine, right? Once you get to, let's say, 100,000, then you can literally rent a studio, and all of these parts now become a system, a repeatable system. That's this part of the machine, right? You've got your system. But the key is to actually making it repeatable. So how can I make it repeatable? I can set up a system where The designer feeds the information to the model scout to pick the right models, right? He also feeds the information to the photographer, who then can also feed it to a location scout. The key component in this 4-step process is the designer, because the vision of the clothing is their vision. If they're launching like a grungy style, then the model and the photographer and the location are all completely different. The designer is the person pulling the strings once you get to a certain stage. So at the start, it's you. Then you bring in someone who can manage that and do the design. It's completely different then. It's a more systemized approach. They can become the leader in that system, essentially. So if you're already at 100,000 a month, right? You then set up a schedule. All good systems run on a schedule where, let's say, every 2 weeks, you get new content into the pipeline. If you're launching a new campaign, you do it 1 month. There's a trend constantly going around on Instagram at the moment and TikTok or whatever, where it's like, do this once a month, do this once a day, once a week. That's basically your system. A good system is you do this every 2 weeks, you launch every 1 month, right? That's your system there. Congratulations, you are now at the next level. You've got scheduling going, right? But how do we keep growing to 1 million? Simple. We then take this repeating schedule, right? That's all of our content, clothing, all of that sorted. Then we bring in an ad specialist, a email specialist, right? That builds the system up higher to here. You layer on, as we were talking about in previous videos, you bring in edge, you bring in resources. If you're at 100,000 revenue a month, then you can bring in a lot more resources. And to get to that $1 million goal, you set these repeatable systems up constantly that just churn through over and over and over till you get to the point where your systems are set up, all this system is set up, and you're just constantly feeding the machine. The machine, whether that be organic sales or your social media or your ad strategy. Like you need to constantly feed the machine, but you can't feed it if you don't build it. And at each level of the business, there are different levels to the machine. You build it bit by bit. You can't build that pipeline. I know a lot of people who try to do this, where they try to build that pipeline from the start, and you cannot do that. You need to literally put the nuts and bolts in at each stage, and you layer it on top and on top and on top until it can run itself and be self-sustaining, and then build up your outputs. And honestly, at the start, a lot of your output is going to have to go back into building it. That's another big issue that a lot of business owners take. They take out money too soon, or they don't take out money at the right time. That's a whole nother story for another day. But if you build a system that you can constantly feed it more of the same thing, then that's a super easy system to scale. If you know you need to launch 10 products every single week to get a certain amount of sales, then that's simple. That's your system. Find 10 products. How can I build a system to find 10 products? And you just go from there and keep going. So, key takeaway: build your machine first. Each stage of your business has a different level of the machine needed. Once you've built your machine, just keep feeding it, because the more you feed it, the more growth you will have, and you can keep going from there. But you need to literally think of it as a machine that requires certain inputs and certain outputs to actually function properly. If you have any questions about systems or building a machine or anything like that we've covered in this video, just leave a comment. I'll get back to it when I can, and I'll help in the best way I can. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit of a shorter one compared to our other videos, but it's really important and a key principle of growth in the ecom space, but just in the digital online making money space, any business really. But a lot of people seem to not understand that they have to build the machine and then feed it constantly, because you can build it and it won't operate as good if you're not feeding it. You can build it too big and it won't work because you're feeding it too little. You need to balance the size of the machine and what you're feeding it to keep it maintaining and keep it growing and going at the same speed and optimal efficiency. So thanks for watching. Leave a comment, like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video, and we'll go into another concept on the whiteboard.